Hello and welcome to another video and a new format. I hope you like it. Sorry it's been a little while. I've been pretty busy lately, but I was at a chess tournament this weekend just gone. Like I said, 3 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and today I'm going to be analysing game number 2. And if you're wondering why I'm not starting with game number 1, it's because game number 1 and number 3 I was black pieces, and they were both Caracan games. So I'm going to bring those both into one video, and I'm going to be looking over those with my coach. So keep an eye out for that video. That'll be coming next. And so, for anyone who's an experienced chess tournament player, you will know it is a nightmare playing against kids, right? They're usually massively underrated. They can think a lot faster than you, calculate sharper than you, they tend to have annoying mannerisms, and sometimes they've got a parent hovering over the board giving you evils as well. So generally a nightmare. So when I sat down for round number 2 and I saw that not only was I playing a kid, but an Asian kid wearing a full-blown suit who was called Derek, I was petrified to say the least. Young Derek is giving off chess tournament final boss vibes. He means business. He's not playing around. He's come to win. And yeah, I was ready to resign before the game even started. But if you want to know how I got on, watch this video. The game started with e4, and young Derek played c5. Oh, and I rate it, by the way. I do rate him wearing the full suit. You know, I'm not taking the piss or anything. I think that's cool, and I do respect him for that. Knight c3. This is the closed Sicilian. He played knight to c6. I played g3. This is the Fianchetto variation of the closed Sicilian. d6 from young Derek, and bishop g2. g6, d3, bishop g7, knight g to e2. So my idea, I want to push this f pawn at some stage. Generally, my idea in this opening is to attack on the king side. I tend to go f4, h3, g4, and you break on the king side. So I don't want to block the f pawn. So knight g to e2. You don't want to block the bishop either with the knight on f3. So we get knight to f6, castles, and h3. So the idea of this move is simply just to stop the bishop coming to g4. But I don't think I have to play it straight away. I think I can go f4 first because, I can play h3 after the bishop comes, which is fine. And if he wants to trade, I'm more than happy with this, retaining the bishop pair, and because I've played these moves, the light squares around my king are weak, so happy to see the back of his light squared bishop. But I play h3 as a prophylactic move anyway, just preventing this. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, perfectly fine. And he played h5. I've never seen this move before. It's the first time I've seen this. So I kind of changed my move order a bit. I was going to play f4, but now he's weakened these dark squares. I decide to make a battery with my bishop and queen. So I play bishop e3. He plays bishop d7 and queen d2. Just looking to infiltrate on these squares. So he plays king to h7, just adding some more protection onto this square. So then I revert back to what I was doing, f4. So liking my position at the moment. Queen to c8, he's setting up a battery to win this pawn. He's obviously got 2 attackers, I've only got 1 defender. So slide the king over to h2, just to double protect that. And rook to b8. So this is standard in the close Sicilian, where white wants to play on the king side and black's going to play on the queen side. So rook to b8 just prepares b5, b4. He's gonna play on this side of the board. So I just played a4, just clamping down on this square to prevent him playing this. And of course he plays a6, trying to push it through anyway. So I play a5, and what this does is, if he plays b5 now, I can en passant, and even though he gets this open file for his rook, I've got this target here. This a file is semi-open for my rook. This is better for me than just allowing him, obviously, to get this pawn chain and expand on the queen side. So Oh, sorry, just skipped a couple of moves there. So after a5, black plays knight to b4, just sitting his knight on this temporary outpost at the moment. Obviously, one day if this knight moves, I can play c3 and kick him, but for now, this is a strong square for the knight. And with this a5 move, what this has done as well is weakened this square here. So if you imagine, I can hop this knight into this square. This square is an outpost now for my knight. An outpost is, oh sorry, an outpost is when there's no pawns either side of that square, so you can plant a piece in there, and you know it can be kicked because he's got knights and technically a bishop, although the bishop's never going to make it over to this side of the board. But he's got knights that can kick me. If you imagine these knights and that bishop came off the board, and this knight was sat here, he can never get rid of it. So, you know, and it's deep into the enemy territory, which makes it an even stronger outpost. They're normally strongest when they're in the center of the board. So, you know, keep an eye out for weak squares like this. Normally a weak square is when you've had 2 pawns pushed past. Usually sometimes as well there's a pawn behind, so you can, and you know, if you can get a pawn protecting that square as well, or ideally another piece. So you imagine if I had a knight here and a knight here, if he was to take it, you hop it in with another knight. A knight is always the best piece to occupy an outpost. If not a knight, then a bishop. But knights generally, the way they move, covering 8 squares, they usually make, they definitely make the best pieces for occupying outposts. So I go knight a4, looking to jump straight into this square. And if he trades, which he does, I'm more than happy with this. Like I said earlier, this bishop's a very important piece for me, defensive piece. And with him losing his light squared bishop, it takes a lot of pressure off my king. You know, I've got some weak light squares around my king with developing the way I did Fianchetto in this bishop. Happy to see the back of that light squared bishop, and happy to have the bishop pair. Black plays bishop to h6. Not quite sure what the idea of this is. I mean, that looks like a really nice diagonal for the bishop. I'm not sure why he's moved it there. Just trying to look now. I can't see a reason as to why he's played that. I'm sure he's never planning on pushing g5. But anyway, I just dropped my rook back. I thought, you know, my rook's not doing a lot on a4. I don't want it to get caught out at some point. You know, he can attack it. Let's just drop it back, push the clock back onto my opponent. You know, sometimes it's just nice to make these very kind of simple, slightly improving moves, just to push the time back onto your opponent and get them thinking, and then you can think on their time. Black plays queen to c7. I'm guessing he's just maybe putting a bit of pressure on this in case my rook moves. And so now my plan's changed. At the start of the game, like I said, generally my plan is a kingside attack. But as games progress, you know, you should always be changing your plan. You should always have a plan. There's a saying in chess that a bad plan is better than no plan. If you're just moving pieces around aimlessly, you don't really know what you're doing, you're just moving pieces around for the sake of it, generally you're going to get busted. It's not a good idea. You should always have some kind of plan, you know, whether it's attacking a weakness in the enemy territory, whether it's playing on a certain side of the board. You should always have an idea of what to do. I understand as a beginner you probably get in a situation where you don't know what plan to come up with. Completely normal. I used to suffer really badly with that myself, sometimes still do. It just comes from experience, you know, reading chess books, analysing your games, learning from your coach, whatever. It just comes with lots and lots of experience of all sorts of different things. I would say mainly reading books and doing online courses is probably where I got most of my experience from, intuition from, coming up with plans. But anyway, going back to the game, my plan's changed now. I've got the bishop pair, he hasn't. There's not really much more progress can be made on the king side, I don't think. Not without causing serious weaknesses to myself anyway. So my plan now is I'm going to expand in the centre. And I'm going to get the board open for these 2 bishops and this rook. Probably bring the other rook over as well. And I'm going to play through the middle. So I'll play knight c3. This just before blasting the centre open, just make some preparatory moves. The knight is influencing the centre more here than where he was. This rook can come over and play down the e-file if it opens. So just preparing to blast the centre open, like I said. b5, and then, like I said earlier, en passant, he takes with the queen. And, you know, he's got a bit of pressure down the b file now. I'm not too worried. Like I said, I'm going to be playing in the centre. He has stepped into this pin as well. So I play d4, start to break the centre open. He plays rook f to d8, and I play d5. And now I know this looks, I just said I'm opening the centre, and this looks like I'm closing it down, but that's not the case. I'm planning on this push here, e5. So what this does is it's just locking this pawn in place. It's opening up potential tricks here, and my main pawn push here is going to be e5. And if you imagine later on, if you get, let's just make it a move him. If you get e5 takes, we've now got a 2 versus 1 situation. So I'm able to make a pass pawn. So anyway, after d5, black plays a5, just continuing to play on that side of the board. I play knight to a4, and what my idea of this is I'm just attacking the queen, but also when the queen moves, I play c4 here, just bolstering my centre, but also this square here will be lovely for my knight now. So I can reroute from here to here, and this is an outpost for my knight, like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, the engine actually said this c4 move was an inaccuracy, but you know, you can see what I'm thinking. I'm building my centre. I'm giving myself a lovely square for this knight. And once I can get my knight to this square, it basically shuts down everything he's doing on that side of the board. Black plays rook to b7. I reroute my knight, as I said. He doubles his rook. And I bring my rook to b1. Just over, I mean, the queen's protecting this pawn. I'm just adding more protection for if this knight ever moves. You know, I'm just double protecting this pawn. I could have just blocked the file with my knight, but sometimes, and one thing I used to do, one mistake I used to make is whenever I had a square like this, I would jump into it straight away. But after reading a few books and learning a bit more, actually, sometimes it's stronger just to occupy, just to have an eye on that square and not actually occupy it. And I think this is a perfect example. My knight, if I jump my knight into here, yes, it's blocking up his queen side, it's on an outpost, it's all good and well. I'm jumping in with tempo on this. He could maybe sack here and win a knight and win the knight and the pawn for a rook, which would probably be his best move maybe without me checking. But actually, just with my knight just being where it is, it's still doing its job of fighting for the centre, but it's also now doing a job of looking at this square. So the knight is much better where it is rather than jumping into b5. And that's why I just shuffle the rook over. I'm happy with my knight. I think it's in the perfect place. Black plays e6, and I push on with e5. And what the idea of this is, I've got 2 attackers here on this bishop. So there's all sorts of tactics going on now. If this pawn ever moves with a tempo, then I can take this bishop. So I start looking at takes. I'm attacking the knight, and I'm attacking this bishop. By pushing e5 as well, I'm opening this bishop up. Notice that this is looking at a rook. So the bishop pair really coming into its own now. The board is going to open up. The centre's opening up, and you know, with my knight looking in the centre, these 2 bishops, the centre opening for me. You know, with these tactics hiding beneath the surface as well. This is only going to pay off for me. So yeah, rather than, you know, taking here isn't going to do me many favours. Yes, it opens the queen to this backward pawn, but it's this push I want to get in really. I want to get this in, really open things up. And black does take, and I take back. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got this now. 2 attackers on this bishop. He's only got 1 defender. We're attacking this knight, and potentially as well, we're going to push this on and make a pass pawn, attacking the queen at the same time. There's lots of good things going on here. Black grabs a pawn with his queen. I win the bishop. So now a completely winning position for me. Just got to convert it. So black gets a bit desperate, plays h4. He wants to start going on a mad attack. Of course he does. But I can just bring the bishop back, protecting this, attacking the queen. Black takes with check. No problem. I just drop the bishop back, still doing the same job. and it's now skewering this queen and rook as well. But, you know, listen, I'm never going to take that rook. This bishop's doing a really important job of protecting my king. My king's quite open now. It's only got one pawn around it. These bishops are doing a beautiful job. Look how powerful these are. Really good. I wouldn't give this bishop up for that rook, to be completely honest with you. You know, maybe if his queen wasn't sniffing around and it was more of a simplified position, I would. But right now, I'm certainly not. I have something much better now. Something I didn't mention just then. I'm attacking his queen, but also, once his queen moves, if you look, I'm attacking this knight as well. So, the queen, now I've took back with the bishop. The queen cannot go here. Obviously, it's protected by my rook. The queen can't go here. It's protected by my other queen. Black's in massive trouble now. He's going to lose another piece. Rook takes f6. And he slides the rook over. You know, completely desperate times now. He's completely losing. He wants to move out of the way and get on a big attack. But if anyone could find the winning move here, this queen is looking a bit trapped. And bishop to f3 takes all the queen's squares away. So my queen is covering these squares. My rook is covering these squares. You know, my bishop is covering these squares. Yeah, I'm looking at that queen. The bishop's obviously covering this square as well. I'm looking at that queen and thinking, if I can get on the light squares, the queen's dead. So bishop f3, and young Derek resigns. I thought he was a really good player, personally. He's definitely got a bright future ahead of him. I think he was only rated about 1200. I personally think he's better than that. Like I said before, kids tend to be underrated. I think he told me he was 1800 online. And he was only, I don't know how old he was, early teens at best, I think. So he's got many good years ahead of him, and I'm sure he's going to be a very good chess player, better than me for sure. So big respect to Derek. Love the way he was dressed. Love the way he played. Good luck in his future tournaments. Wish him all the best, and stay tuned for my round 1 and round 3 games. See you later. Thank you.